This tutorial will be how to assemble the train once you have all of the parts done. So I have all of my train parts. I want to make sure that they're all in the same folder. Inventor just does better if they're in the same place. So if you need to pull the axle peg from my shared folder and put it into your H drive folder that has all of your other train pieces, you should do that first. Then I'm going to click on assembly. We're going to open up this assembly. Now this file is a .iam file, and the first thing that we need to do is bring in our part files, our IPT files, into this, and we do that by clicking on place. So when I choose place, I need to navigate over to where my train is, to H drive, finish train, and then I'm going to start bringing things in. And the order will change how the parts list order appears, but it isn't too big of a deal, especially in this assignment. So I'm going to choose my train body first. I only have one of these, and to get a reference for how many of each thing I have my parts list here on the worksheet. So I have item 1. You can see this balloon for the parts list points to item 1. I have one of those. That's the train body. Some of these parts, like the wheels, I have 4 of these, and so when I bring in the wheel, I'll click on place, I'll choose train wheel, and I can click 4 times and bring those in. And when I'm done, I can click place again or just press escape, and that will stop dropping them. I've got 4 linkage pegs, and I'm just placing them in places where I'll be able to see them very easily. 1 stack. This is the magnet that goes in the back. This is what attaches the wheels to the axle, so I'll need 4 of those. 2 linkage pegs. This is the peg that attaches actually that one is the wrong one. Okay. So once I have all of those, the very first thing I want to do, this is still all set up as an isometric, that 120-degree angle isometric. So I want to lock one of my parts so that it stays isometric. I want to ground it. And everything's going to be attaching to the body, so I'll ground the body. I'm going to click on the body, and I can see it highlighted over here on my assembly. So on the in the browser, I'm going to right click on the train body in the browser and choose grounded. And that's going to keep that body from moving, and it's going to stay isometric. I should do that first. I'll know I've done it because there's a little push pin right there that you can see. And now I can start to constrain these things together. Now, this is much easier than the puzzle cube assignment. And the way that we'll be doing this is going to be the method basically from now on. So when I press C or click on constrain, you can see this little window will pop up. And for the puzzle cube, we used the mate and the flush option. Instead, we're going to choose insert. Insert is for anything that's attached with a fastener like a screw or a nail. It's designed to line up 2 round features, 2 holes. And so the way that this works is, let's go to my wheel. And on the wheel, I'm going to lighten this wheel a little bit. Alright, so to constrain, what I need to do is I need to line up 2 holes. So I have the holes for my axles on the train body. I'm going to press C and choose this 4th option, which is insert. And I always want to choose that one. Now all I have to do is click on the 2 holes that will be flush with each other. So I'm going to choose this one, and then the second one is this back of the wheel one here. And when I do that, it makes a loud noise, and it's placed it right on there. I need to click apply to OK it, and then I'm going to exit out to test it. Because that constraint is just on the wheel, or on the centers of the 2 holes, you can see that the wheel will still spin. So I can do that again. Once I get used to this, the insert is incredibly easy to figure out, and it's fast to do. So I click on that one, I click that, I apply it. I don't have to exit out every time. I'm using shift in the middle mouse click to tumble or rotate around the object so that I can get the back. Because if I click on the front by accident, let me show you what happens. If I click here and I click on the front, then it's going to attach it backwards. And that's not what we want. So I'll hit cancel, choose the back, and click there again, apply. Okay, now me show you that again. It's very important to make sure that you're clicking on the right place. Now you may notice as you're doing this that occasionally you have little yellow dots like here on my train body, or yellow or purple lines on your parts. These are sketches that weren't actually used. You made a sketch, but you never turned it into an extrusion or a revolve. We need to get rid of those. You can either open up the part file, and these still just reference the part files. So if you change anything in the part file, it'll change the assembly. Or if I double click on something in the assembly, everything else will become invisible. And that means that I'm now back into the part file for the specific thing. You can see that over in the browser, just the browser things for this part are highlighted. And I can see I have several sketches that are just there. They should all be inside of something like this extrusion, where this sketch is now hidden because it's being used by the extrusion. So I can right click on all these sketches that aren't hidden and choose delete. Do I have any other ones? Yep, right there. And that'll get rid of all of those lines. And I want to do that like for my train body. I have some point there. It's the sketch 10 it looks like. So I delete that one. And then when I'm done working in the part file, I can choose this return box to go back to the assembly. So now I'm going to click C again, choose insert. Now what would happen if I choose this hole and I inserted it with, instead of what I should do, if I inserted it with the front of this bolt? And you can see that it just makes the two holes that you click on flush, or the two round surfaces. So that's not what we want. I'm going to hit cancel and choose that again. It depends on which two things you click on. And the part of this bolt that would be flush with that is the bottom of the head here. And I can click on either of these, this inside one or this outside one. Whatever one I click on, when I apply it, it's going to work. So I apply. Sometimes it's hard to see everything. And I have to click apply every time to OK it. Okay, now I'm going to put the linkage arm on. I'm going to click that inside hole there. And this is going to go not on this edge. It's going to fit inside of that little extrusion. Now, a couple of things that can happen here. The first one is if I try to click this feature and then the outside of the linkage arm, it would have to flip to make this work. And it can't flip because of the earlier constraint. So if I try this, it's going to give me a warning. And I can cancel that. But if I click, let me cancel, hit constraint again. So I need to make sure that I'm choosing, if I have to choose the inside here, the thing that'll work. Now another thing that happens is if you choose all of the right features and it still won't constrain, that may be because you've made a mistake in your dimensioning. If these wheels are at the wrong distance from each other, or if the linkage arm isn't the right length, or if any holes or other features aren't right, it won't work. And so you may have to go back in and make sure that your dimensions for these parts are correct. And you can even do that in here. Double click on the linkage arm, find the extrusion where it was created, double click on that sketch, and you can see if this wasn't 3.5, it wouldn't work. And so you just have to make sure that you've done everything correctly, and this is a good test for that. I've got these little pegs here. This miniature train paper can show you how everything is meant to fit together as well. So the inside, make sure I'm on insert. The bottom of those fit in that hole. That's what keeps the linkage arm on, is the linkage peg. And I'm just going to do a couple more here, and then I'll show you how to render. Apply. Oh, and I haven't put that one on yet. So let's put on that linkage arm. Oops. And sometimes people try to like move it by hand to make it fit first. You don't want to do that. You just want to use the constraint to make it fit. So I had to actually move mine out of the way a little bit before I could make it work. And with the Cowcatcher, I'm going to do an insert on the inside of the first peg in this hole, click apply, and then exit out, because I need to do 2 pegs before it'll stay in place, otherwise it can spin right now. So I'm going to spin it just slightly so that I can see another peg, and then do another insert on the peg. And this is another place where the peg distance might be wrong, or the hole distance on the train. Whoops, I clicked cancel. Oh no, I'm good. Either of those might be wrong, the train holes or the peg holes on the Cowcatcher, and it won't constrain. So you may need to double check that as well. For this, I'm going to double click on it and get rid of that sketch I didn't end up using. And while I'm in this part, I can also do things like change the colors. So it's just like being back in the part file. I can make any changes I want, and it'll automatically happen to there. If I click on a certain face, I can change the color of that face. I'm going to constrain. Because the top hole is a rounded surface, it only is going to let me choose the bottom hole. So I have to choose the bottom of the stack. And I want to color this train in. I'm not going to do it right now, but I want to color the train so that it looks nice. Just going to delete that one so you don't have to watch me doing this too much more. But there's the magnet goes in the back, and then there's a magnet peg that keeps it on as well. But I'm just going to move on to the next part once I get these. So when I'm done, I should be able to hit F6, and because I grounded the train body at first, I get a really nice isometric there. Now, the last thing I want you to do before you submit, I want to do some more advanced rendering. Up here in my ribbon, I have my view ribbon. I'm going to click on that one. And these appearance options can make this render look a lot nicer. So I'm going to turn on visual style, turn on realistic, and these are all things I'm going to have to undo if I need to work on this more because it slows everything down. I'm going to turn on shadows. And you should be able to see these changes happen over here. I'm going to turn on reflections, which is going to make it glow against the reflection on the surface. And the surface is just it hovers above it a little bit. Under two lights, these are all different environments that you can bring this into. Because the train's so small, it doesn't look very good in most of them. You can see this is like a full-on. It has a sky and everything, but it's too small. I found that for the train, either plain room or empty lab work really well. I like plain room, it's got a nice reflection. It's just very simple. You can see that the shadows even self-shadows. It applies shadows to itself even. Under orthographic, I can turn on perspective, which is a more realistic look, but I think it tends to look a little weird in this program. And so you can choose to keep it orthographic, which means the lines are always parallel, or not. And then something that you want to be careful with, because this can really goof up our computers because it's very complex, we can turn on ray tracing. And ray tracing enhances the lighting by doing a lot more checks on it. It actually is really taxing for the computer. So if I turn on ray tracing, I don't want to, I want to probably leave it as interactive or good. I did put it on best the other day, and it took about an hour to render. So I probably don't want to mess with that. But that's going to give me even more detailed shadows and reflections, and you should be able to see this as soon as it's done. So that's my more complex render. Oops, and if I move it, sometimes it does have to render again. And so now when I go to the eye at the top, you can see the reflections here. It just looks really nice when you do these things. It does slow when it redraws it, it slows it down considerably. Now I can go up to the eye, choose Export Image, and save a JPEG of this assembly. And I'd call this whatever period you're in, your last name, your first initial, train assembly. And I want to save as type. I want to make sure it's a JPEG. That's the easiest one to deal with. And when I save this, and it'll take a little bit to generate because it's a ray trace now. And you don't have to turn on ray tracing at all. It looks really nice even without it. But with it, it just looks a little bit nicer. And then I should have, let me double click on this here so you can see it. That is my JPEG of my assembly. And then I would submit that. And then you are done with the assembly. Make sure you get those two things in the back too. And then you're ready to go. That's how you do that assignment.